Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Carnivore's Grandma Speaks. This is my show. I'm super excited tonight to have with me my good friend, Laura Russell. Hey, Laura.
Hello.
So happy
Glad to
that
be
you
here.
are here tonight. Welcome back. Tonight, we are talking about my labs. So it's probably been close to a year since I had Laura
Yeah.
on and she evaluated my last year's labs. And I recently had a new lab draw and saw some quite interesting things there. So I thought it would be really good to come back and talk with Laura about what am I seeing with my labs? Is there anything that I should be concerned about? And then, how are a carnivore's labs different than standard labs? So, my name is Robin Heron. I am your carnivorous grandma. And I have been a carnivore for close to 3.5 years. So I started on February 22nd, 2023. And so almost 3.5 years ago. And I eat primarily meat based way of eating, meaning that I eat meat, eggs. I eat a little bit of seasonings, but mostly just salt. And then I just have like a Keto Brains nootropic for brain health. So, not too much supplementation. I do like salty electrolytes, but I don't eat any plants. So I don't eat any fruits or vegetables. And I've been doing that for 3.5 years. So things have changed a little bit. And so, Laura, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes. So I'm Healthy Carnivore. That is my channel. And I am a registered nurse. I've been in the nursing field over 23 years now. So for quite a while. Started out myself at 313 pounds. That'll be 35 years now. And went keto, did keto, clean keto, like all organic, natural stuff. And then decided that keto treats were a great idea, which was not a great idea, and got myself very sick. I ended up with leaky gut syndrome. I had SIBO, I had joint pain, I had depression, anxiety, very bad OCD. I still have a little OCD, but it's the good kind that you want your nurse to have because I put things back where they belong every time. Yeah. So I think that's a good I kept just a little. But then after I'd gotten sick again, I hadn't gained back any weight, but I was flip floppy, I guess, like my muscles were not as defined as they had been. And granted, I was like 47, 48, 49, somewhere in that range. And so just happened upon a podcast with Joe Rogan, who I'd never seen before and had never seen the Sean Baker before, but this big ox of a guy was on there and I scrolled past it and I was like, wait a minute. So I went back down and watched the video. I think it was the first time he had been on there. I think he's been on there twice since then. And I was like, this makes sense to me. My heritage is my dad was three-quarters Cherokee Indian. And so they wasn't chasing around broccoli. So I'm like, they followed the herds. Their family lived in upper Illinois before they were walked to Wyoming to the rocks. And so that's how they had eaten. And I thought, well, that makes sense. That may work out pretty good for me because, like my husband, he's Irish. He literally is disgusting in a way because he can eat a baked potato as big as his head and his blood
Mhm.
sugar goes up 32 points. I can eat a head of broccoli and my blood sugar will go up over 250 points. So to me, when I
Wow.
did that experiment on both of us, I thought, well, I could have ate a Snickers and had it go that far. Not that I wanted one, but I was like, why am I making myself eat bitter? It doesn't taste good to me. Like broccoli wasn't something that tasted good. And and
Mhm.
I've talked to other people, they're like, I don't get that. When I eat vegetables, they don't make me feel like I'm chewing on grass, but they do me. Like if you've ever been around a cow when it's chewing cud and you can smell the grass, that's exactly what they tasted like to me. And so I'm like, why? Why do that? So after that, the very next day, I went carnivore and it's been over 7 years and it's the best thing I ever did, ever did. So that's my background of how I got to where I did. And then some friends got together and was like, hey, why don't you put together a website and help me get that built? And never looked back. I've been working with clients. I think I have over, I don't even know. I'd have to look now. I was over 900. So I have worked with a lot of people. Plus, as a nurse, every patient's house I walk into, I'm like, "Deet, deet, 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 deet." I scan everything, just kind of see what their environment and their food choices are. And then education goes into that. And it's not that I tell the patients, you must eat carnivore. I just say,
Mhm.
you must not eat processed foods. Let's try to get
Right.
rid of processed. So
So I
that's
think
kind
that's
of
one of the
where,
big keys, yeah.
yeah,
That's one of the
yeah.
big keys
I
is not just eating only
mhm,
meat, but elimination of processed packaged foods and,
yes,
seed oils. Those are
yes.
critical pieces to having a healthy, way of eating.
Yes, I agree. Well, and I worked in a food factory before I went to nursing school. And just seeing what was allowed to be in human consumed food versus dog food, and that's no joke, was eye opening to me because, Y2K 99, everybody was freaking out about that. So we made canned meat products like Vienna sausage, potted meat, treat, did any more stews, lunch buckets. We made lunch buckets back then. And so we were working 7 days a week, every day except for Christmas and Easter. And we got a baby food contract with Beechnut baby food contract. And a week later, Alpo came through and we did not hit their marks for dog food. And
Mhm,
I remember
mhm.
going, hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. There's something wrong here. So I went to our USDA because we always had USDA people on site, and his name was Larry. And he would tell me anything I asked because he's a deer hunter as well. So we were always comparing deer hunting stories and stuff. And I said, how did we not get their contract? What was it? And he says it was the amount of uh, material that could be added, well, either added in or just happen to get in, like rat stuff, mice
Oh.
stuff,
Mhm.
maggots, any of that kind of stuff. Based upon the weight for human consumed food, it is allowed to be 1/3 of these contaminants can be in human consumed food, where dogs, it was way less than that. Horses is zero. You can't have any contaminants in their food. And I was like, so if Y2K really happens, I'm better off to pull Alpo off of the shelf than I am most
Wow.
anything else in the can. And he said, yeah,
That is crazy.
yeah,
That is
yeah.
yeah, we know that our food system leaves much to be desired, because we have so many chemicals and, additives and things in the food that if you go to another
Yeah.
country, they're not allowed to have that stuff.
Hmm.
So, but we
Yeah.
allow it over here in the good old US of A. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty interesting.
It is very interesting. And the sad thing is I, I try to sit back and think and project, I should say project, that they went into these things making food like products because
Mhm.
there were so many people to feed, because that's what they say. But I don't
Yeah.
think that's true. I don't think
I
that's
think it's
true.
about the
The
money,
money.
the mighty dollar.
Mhm.
Mhm. I
Yep,
think it's
it's the
about money.
money. Yep, yep. I think it's the money that's tied to it. Um, because there was different products that we made. We had some stuff that was kosher, and we would literally have a rabbi come and do his little prayer thing over it.
Yeah.
That had to be very clean. And when we
Mm.
made products for other countries, like we made stuff for Ireland, very clean. And it was like when we got done making their stuff, we didn't have to clean out the tanks or anything. We could just start adding our stuff in, and it'd be like 50 different items going in there for the exact same thing we just made that had five. And then
Wow.
if we went from making the materials for, like, Walmart was a big company that bought from us at the time. When we got done making ours, if we were switching to theirs, we had to go through and decontaminate, clean out. Just, you couldn't believe the amount of cleaning you had to do and have it sterilized before we started the clean product. It was just eye
Wow.
opening.
Very
Yeah.
interesting. And, Laura knows that I love potted meat. Like, it's one of my jams. I just really like it. I grew up
Yeah.
eating it. And she, when I first heard her talking about the deal with the potted meat, she's like, "Don't eat it." I'm like, "But I love it." So I
Mm.
kind of slowed down on
Yeah.
the potted meat. But if, per se,
Mhm.
if I had to choose between a head of broccoli and a can of potted meat, I'd take the potted meat every day.
I would too, but I'd have to not warm it up because that's what the reason it makes me so it wasn't even so much of what was in it. It was more of the machine that I worked on. It would spill out of the cans as it would go through the filler. It'd be filled, and then a lid would go on, and then it would, clamp the lid down. Is that there were steam pipes all around this, and it would spill out, and that smell would just come up. 12-hour shifts, you just smell that
Oh,
stuff
I know that
burning, and
probably was pretty gross.
yeah, yeah, it was too much,
It was
too
pretty
much.
horrible. So, hey, you guys, go ahead and drop where you're watching from down in the chat. My name is Robin Heron. I'm your carnivorous grandma. Today, we are going to take a look at my labs. I'm a 3-year carnivore, and I want to see what happened to my labs over the course of this time. So, this is the third time that we have been on, and she has reviewed my labs. And so, that is what we are here to talk about today. Do we want to get into it, Laura?
Sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
I want to say this before I bring my first one up. I was at work this week and they ordered food for everybody for like 3 of the days that I was there. They ordered food. And one day they ordered these pita pockets and they had like vegetarian ones because lots of folks on our team are vegetarians. And then they
Mhm.
had chicken ones. The person next to me had this pita pocket. It was full of vegetables and it smelled like grass. It smelled like
Mm.
outside grass,
Ugh.
like grass clippings. It was so strong. I had to just get up and go out of the room because I could not tolerate the smell of it. It smelled so, so strong. So, yeah, that when you were talking about the cow with the cud, I'm like, yeah, our
Mhm.
stomach is not made to process that stuff. So very
True.
interesting. So,
Mhm.
so Laura, which one do you think we want to start one? Should we start with? Should we start with
Um,
the one
we can do
that went
yes. Yes.
let's start with that one. Okay, we're gonna start with the A1C. All right, this is my A1C, glucose, and fasting insulin. So, Laura, do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Yes. Yeah, so, looking back just from memory from your previous ones, this is what I am not surprised to see this the more years into carnivore that you go. Um,
Hmm.
it's not uncommon. I've worked with other people that their hemoglobin A1C goes up. Dr. Berry talks about this a lot. Dr. Chafee has also talked about this in depth, and I think Dr. Kiltz as well. And what I find is when you see this, you'll also see that somebody's MCV, which is mean corpuscle volume, will
Hmm.
also be elevated some, which yours was a little bit. Not crazy, but it was on the higher end. That
Mhm.
just means that you have bigger and more red blood cells. So, as we know with carnivore, it is normally your red blood cells live about 90 days and then you clean out and you produce new ones. Well, what happens that we see with carnivores, and I think most of it is because of the iron, like the vitamin B and stuff like that, our red blood cells live longer, but genetically, we all, every about 90 days, we make these new ones. And so what happens is we tend to have more red blood cells in the body
Mhm.
than somebody who's eating the standard American diet or even have been on this diet for a shorter amount of time. They don't live as long, so they don't get as glycated. If you have more red blood cells out there, they can all pick up the glycation. So you're
Yeah.
going to see that number go up. You know
Okay.
that yours is kind of a false positive of that because if we look at your glucose, you're at 79.
So
if we
let's just
look at your fasting
give a
insulin.
readout of that
Perfect.
that A1C number there.
Mhm.
It's a 6.3. So my physician that ordered these labs said, "Hey, you're in the diabetic range." And I'm like, "But wait a second. Now, Laura, go ahead and talk about those other two."
Yeah. Yeah. So, if and this is the problem with labs is one, it's set up on people who are sick, and it's the average of those people walking around. And if 75% of people are walking around with metabolic disease and borderline diabetes, if not full on diabetes, then yes, we're going to look like that. But when
Mhm.
you see that your glucose is at 79, and when you
Yep.
see your fasting insulin is perfect, 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 then we know that that's showing that your red blood cells are living longer and allowing glycation. There is another test you can do.
Mhm.
Dr. Berry talks about this. It's called glycated albumin, and that gives a better picture of what's really going on
Right.
versus the regular hemoglobin A1C. And then, as we can see from your CGM markers down there, you're really very, very steady through there. And I mean, there's little teeny spikes, but you're going to have that when you eat, or when you exercise, or, if you're in stress, stuff like that. You'll
Mhm.
have these little bumps, but these are bumps. If you see what it looks like when somebody would eat a piece of bread or a piece of pizza or something like that, they'll
Right.
spike up almost off of the chart and then, go back down to a degree. So that tells me where, when I look at this, that's good to have the whole picture to look at, because yes, our medical staff are trained to not even look at the person. I mean, to look at you and how you feel and how healthy you are. If all they did was look at your labs, which drives me insane, and it happens all the time. I have it
Mhm.
with patients where they feel like absolute garbage, and their thyroid numbers look like this, and they're like, but they're in the normal range. And I'm like, their hair's falling out, their thyroid's sticking out. They can't do it. I mean, they have constipation, they're brittle, dry hair, all these things. And I'm like, okay, it may look normal for them, but they feel like crap. And so that's where I say you
Right.
have to look at everything and
Mhm.
get a better off picture. So I am not concerned in the least with that at all. And I have worked with somebody who has been carnivorous for, I think, 12 years.
Mm.
And theirs did exactly the same thing. So
Yeah.
let's all hope that Dr. Barry and Kim Howerton, I know that they're working on a new Common Sense Labs book, which is going to be set up more with ranges that are going to be for the ketogenic carnivore type lifestyle people, and where we would expect to see ranges. And that'll be a happy day when that book comes out, because I'm ready to buy it.
Yeah, me too, actually. The funny thing was when I received these labs, people started freaking out a little bit, like
Yeah.
that A1C in isolation,
Mhm.
it kind of freaked people out. My husband was like, "What is happening? What is
Yeah.
happening? Diabetes, oh my gosh." But when I looked at the other numbers, and you guys know I'm not a nurse or a doctor, but I am a health coach. So I do look at the numbers from a metabolic health perspective. And I knew that 2.3 on the fasting insulin was dynamic. I thought that was amazing. And then my
Yes.
blood glucose is just really, really steady. And I had worn a CGM back in January. So I started to go back and look at those numbers, but I knew, they could have changed during the time while I had it off. So I did go and I ordered the Lingo, and I have a coupon code for Lingo. If anybody else is interested in getting one, I'll make sure that it's down in the description box. But yeah, I ordered the Lingo so that I could check it for myself, because I knew that I was not having blood glucose spikes. My blood glucose is very steady, and it never
Hmm.
even reaches 100. So there was one time where my blood glucose went over 100. I went to Chili's and ate burger patties and bacon from there, and my glucose spiked to like 128. And that was the highest that it's gotten that I have seen. So, and then I was in ketosis. And I'm like, first of all, if you got high blood sugar, you can't be in ketosis. So, my
Nope.
ketones were like a 2.1. So I felt pretty good about it. But just to give that confidence for the rest of the family to say, there's something weird about that. And it's something different than our doctors typically see, because most people are not a carnivore for 3 years.
That's right.
So that
Yeah.
was just, I just wanted to give that extra assurance by looking at what the blood glucose is doing on a regular basis.
You need a little sticker that says I'm superhuman. My red blood cells kick your red blood cells ass.
Yeah, yeah. So when I started to research, that's what I found, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's another coach out there that talks about this, that basically the cougars are out.
Yeah.
100%. Anyway,
That's right.
but basically, there are other carnivores that do experience this, where their A1C numbers they just when those blood cells start lasting longer, that A1C number creeps up because of the length of time for
Vacation.
glycation to happen.
Yep.
So, very good. All right. So let's
Yes.
take a look at the next one, unless you have anything else to say about that.
Nope. I think that's
Okay.
good.
All right. So let's look at cholesterol. I'm going to just read out
Yes.
these numbers really quick. So my cholesterol is 217, which is in the high range. Triglycerides are 38. HDL is 90. LDL calculated is 120. Non-HDL cholesterol 127, and cholesterol to HDL ratio is 2.4.
Yep. Which is wonderful. Wonderful. So anytime, okay. So if we go back, and I love 1980, but if we go back to 1980 when they really started adding in these tests for our lipids, 300 was where they really wanted people to shoot for. And people there, I would say the majority of most people were higher than 300 or around 300 at the time. And we didn't have the numbers of heart disease, heart attacks, strokes back then to the levels anywhere close to where we have now. Yet they keep lowering that threshold where they want your total cholesterol to be. Um, so that is always a problem for me when we look at these, because I did an experiment on myself a couple years ago where I ran 15 miles. I had been fasted for 3 days, went and got my labs where I work, and that was
Mm-hmm.
through a lab core. I went to see my doctor the next day. I told her I did not get my labs done at her place, which was true. So they ran them again that day. And I had been fasted 10 hours and I did zero exercise. And my points, it was 200 points difference on my total cholesterol. Yeah.
Yeah.
So knowing that, knowing the physiology of the body, um, any stress, whether it be physical stress, whether it be emotional stress, like a new job, um, things like
Yeah.
that, um, even sicknesses, even your immune cells having to get out to someplace. Like even if you aren't sick, but you've been around somebody, but your body's like, hey, I need to get more immune cells pumped out to the places it
Mhm.
needs to. It needs a carrier to get it there. And so my doctor, when she looked at the two, because then I pulled mine out and said, well, look at what mine was yesterday. Same lab core did both of those. So it's not like there was different ranges. It was exactly the same ranges, same facility. So she was like, "Oh, but my triglycerides were 33." So that triglyceride to HDL ratio was very good. And
Yeah.
that's really more of what I would look at if I'm looking at somebody's, yep, if I'm looking at somebody's labs when I'm working with them on my website. I want to see that triglyceride to HDL ratio. That to
And they
me
don't even
is
measure
the
that,
most
Laura.
important.
Like, that's not even in the lab panel. They have like a cholesterol. Is that total
Right.
cholesterol to HDL ratio?
There's, I don't know if that's what they did, but um, it's a really like my lab people, it says triglyceride to HDL
Mhm.
ratio.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if they just did your total cholesterol and did that. But that's a good ratio. Like that to me,
Yeah.
when you see that, that should be enough for any practitioner to look at and be look at your total cholesterol, but yet see your ratio and see your triglycerides where they are. There's
Mhm.
absolutely no way if you were truly diabetic, since your A1C looks high,
Yeah.
your triglycerides would be over 150, at least over
Yeah.
150, in order for that to be accurate, to be a
Okay.
true yeah. So these are wonderful. Yeah, I wish everybody's looked this good.
I was pretty happy with them, but I knew that 217 in isolation would probably have people looking, have my
Oh
medical
yeah.
practitioner looking and saying, need to start thinking about a statin, which I will never do.
Statins.
Never.
Never.
Never ever.
No. And some of the doctors are being a little sneaky, which is where it kind of gets me a little upset because I had a patient who was like, well, I don't take any of the statins because both of her parents had Alzheimer's. And she's like, I want to make sure that I keep the fat in the body for my brain. And I'm like, absolutely. And I start going down her list and I'm like, you're on 2 cholesterol lowering medicines, but they weren't statins. They were like and Timsby is one of them, and I don't
Mm.
remember what the other one is, but it doesn't have statin in the name, but the doctor
My
told
God.
her that it wasn't a statin, and I'm like, "Yes, it is. It
Oh
just
my
goes by a
gosh.
different name." Mhm.
Yeah, we really need to understand the medications that we're taking for sure. I don't
Yes.
take any medications. I do
Yes.
take a little bit of supplementation like
Yeah.
uh, magnesium and vitamin D3, K2,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
other than that, maybe a little iodine, not
Right.
consistently though.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, I don't take any medications and I don't want to have to take medications. So,
No.
just because I'm turning 60 this year doesn't mean that I have to have a box of
Mhm.
medications. I just do not want that.
That's right. And I can promise you that when you walk in your doctor's office at the age of 60, you are probably the only 60-year-old walking in there that doesn't have prescriptions. I can just about guarantee that is the case.
Mm, mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I want to just bring this up because this is Galen. She's saying that my mom was tricked by her MD by switching her to generic statin. That's
Exactly. And that's not accidental. Like the lady I was working with, she had even voiced like both of my parents had this. They had been on statins for 35, 40 years, plus acid reducing medicine, which those two together are a deadly combination for um, diabetes, Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, ALS, and MS. And he was like, "Oh yeah, no, we're not doing that." And she went home with 2 of them, and she'd been taking them for about 3 weeks. And I said, "Did you have any side effects when you started these?" And she was like, "Yep, I'd even called the office and left 3 messages and had never heard back." She
oh
had the
my God.
muscle pain that you see a lot of times and the joint
Hmm.
pain, and she said her eyes were so dry that when she would blink, she said you could literally hear like it was like sandpaper. And I'm
Oh,
like,
that's
"Yeah, we
crazy.
need we need that cholesterol. We need that to be in
That
there." So
is
those
crazy.
she threw them away that day.
Good for her. Good for
Yeah.
her. Yeah, no statins, please. All right, so
Yeah.
let's take a look at the CBC with iron. I don't know which ones of these you want to talk about.
Let's see. They're a little hard to see for me.
I got a WBC. Let me see if I can bring it up on my phone because, yeah, they are small. They are small. WBC, RBC, hemoglobin, which looks a little low.
Mhm.
Hematocrit, and then MCV, MCH, MDHC. I can't see those other ones. The last one's MPV. And then we got ferritin over there and
Mhm.
iron, which is a little low. I think it says 5.8.
Yeah, yeah, I
Transferrin,
can see.
TBC, and iron. So sorry, those are so
Yeah.
small.
And then the TIBC, the iron binding capacity is that other one. So when I see the iron, those iron counts be a little bit low, and it's
Hmm.
somebody who's doing carnivore, if they're not feeling tired, any of those kinds of things, then I would not worry about that. Now, if I had
Yeah.
somebody who was like, I can't get out of bed, I'm tired, I'm short of breath, then I would
Mm.
be like, okay, then we need to think about like thalassemia, which I had said to you, like, do you have
Right.
anybody in the family with that? Because that can run with sickle cell anemia and thalassemia, which are two that do hit the African, nations. So it
Hmm.
can be something like that. But you look fine, you're feeling fine. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't look at that and be like, oh, this is a, but like I said, I would base that on if I saw something low like that, I would look at, how do you feel? How are you acting? The other thing is we all can have different gene mutations as well. So there
Mm.
is MTHR, there is COMP-T, trying to think, there's one that's called CBS. And those three gene mutations can also make it to where you feel fine, which is great, but you may just run a little bit low on that because of how the body, how your genes are expressing these things, because those genes are what tell your enzymes to break these things down and get them put where they go. So you could potentially have something like that, but you don't have any of the symptoms. So I would say this is just where you're going to be. And like we said, I think once Dr. Barry and Kim get this book out with more of the ranges, you're going to be able to look at it and be like, yeah, this is completely okay. Because
Yeah.
you got to think about the amount of iron also sitting on your hemoglobin and different things like that. Because that's where the heme iron sits on. That's why it's called hemoglobin,
Hmm.
is you have a lot more cells. So you may look like you have less numbers because you've got the right amount of iron, but you got way more cells in there than what the average standard American diet person
Okay.
would have. Yeah.
Makes
So,
sense. I
yes.
was iron deficiency anemic basically my whole life until I went carnivore. And then my first two lab draws after I went carnivore, my iron was in the normal range. And now it's a little bit low again. So that's interesting what you're saying about the amount of cells. The other thing that I was doing a lot more of when I first started carnivore was I was eating a lot more organ meats. So I was getting all the stuff from the farm and I was eating liver all the
Yep.
time. And, you know, every
Yep.
time I had a taste for it, because I would feel like my body would tell me when I needed it.
Sure.
But lately, I kind of have cut back on that and have not really had it. So I'm wondering if like eating more liver or organ meats might be helpful for that.
Yes, yeah, and I would say that adding some of that in, even if it's just one time a week, would probably help bring that up. But then when you look at, like, if somebody truly has anemia, their vitamin B is also their folate and stuff like that's going to be in the tank, and
Okay.
yours is not.
So
So
let's take a
that's how
look at
you
that.
know it's not
I'm
true.
gonna pop
Yeah,
that crazy one up. This is my vitamin
yeah.
D and vitamin B. So vitamin B12 is like
Okay.
1,321. So it's not low at all.
No,
And vitamin E is
very good.
77. Yeah.
Which is perfect. Yeah, I like to see vitamin D, shooting close to 80. I shoot for myself, I go between 80 up to about 140. If I get to 140, I may, especially during the summer, I will do like the vitamin K2, D3 every other day.
Mhm.
Not that I'm worried about it being higher than that because I'm not, when my doctor was like, "Oh my God, you're at 140." And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "I don't get sick. My vitamin D gets into my bones. I've got good bones, good teeth." I'm like, "What do you think them old farmers, vitamin D level was back in the day when they was sitting on a tractor with no cab over them out in the sun, or even before that when they were literally behind the
Mm.
horses all day
Mhm.
long? What do you think their vitamin D level was?" If you can get so many
Yeah.
thousand international units every 15 minutes, I'll bet you their vitamin D was probably in the 4 or 500 range, if not even
Right.
higher than that. But if you know any
Mhm.
old farmers, they didn't used to break bones. They had all their teeth when they were 90, all these things. They didn't catch everything that came down the pike. And it's like when we
Right.
look at the average person, their vitamin D, as long as it's at 30, they're like, "Oh, well, you're okay. That's good." I can promise you
Mm.
during times of sickness, vitamin D of 30, not good. Not good because your
Mm.
immune cells are not getting where they need to get. So I
Right.
think there's just about nobody I've ever met that should not be taking some K2D3. And even eating ancestral as we do, you're only going to get so much of it because the ground is pretty much dead. It's been
Yeah.
over farmed. So what they're
Mhm.
eating from the ground doesn't have the vitamins and minerals that it used to have. And so there are times where you do need to add that stuff in. And if you're darker pigmented, you are blocked from absorbing the sunlight and converting it to vitamin D more than somebody who's really pale. And then there
Right.
are some people that also, even if they are pale, where they don't convert, and sometimes that comes down to a methylation problem. And with those people, like my vitamin B is over 2000 every time I go. She's like, "Well, you're over 2000." And I'm like, "Good, I don't care." Same with my vitamin
That's
D, because
good.
she's like, "You're going to make kidney stones." And I'm like, "No, because I don't eat junk." I said, "I'm not going to make kidney stones because the K2 pulls those oxalates, those calciums out and puts them over
Mhm.
in the bone matrix where it's supposed to go." And I've
Yeah.
I've handed her studies and stuff, and she reads them, I think. But she has gotten to where she doesn't even talk about it anymore. She just leaves it alone and just says, "Well, your labs look as good as they did. You're doing fine, and I'll see you in a year." Because I don't see her other than one time a year. That's it. And
Yeah.
that's only because my insurance company says I have to keep my health
Right.
insurance, which I could care less if I had my health insurance, to be honest, because I
Yeah.
have catastrophic, I have like
Okay.
Aflac or whatever. So
Mhm.
I could care less if I had it.
Yeah.
It's really an
Yeah.
expense.
I mean, I that's me too. I mean, I typically do not go to the doctor very often. Particularly since I've been carnivore, I have not, really needed to go that much. So, there's a question in here. It says, "What type of sunscreen do you use, if any?"
Oh, I generally, after, let's see, probably 4 years into carnivore, I finally got to the point where I don't sunburn at all. But it took years to get those seed oils out. The seed oils is really the majority of the reason that you're going to burn, because seed oils are not broken down like a natural oil in our body. So it goes into the skin cells and stuff like that. So that is where the sunburning comes from. I do make a tallow based sunscreen that I sell to people, because a lot of the people that buy from me eat the standard American diet
Yeah.
and still have seed oils. And it's just tallow. I think it has a little beeswax. It has the zinc. Um, I'm trying to think what else. That might be it. I mean, it's very minimal ingredients that you put on, but most of the time, if you clean up that seed oil, I don't think you would have much problem with burning. After a while, you got to
Yeah.
get those worked out. And that's where
Yep.
people, so many people that try to clean out their diet, they talk about the keto flu and they don't feel good. And most of the time it's because you're breaking down these fat cells where all this junk went into to lay there because it didn't have any place else to break down. And so
Um,
it goes into these cells. And then as you're breaking down these fat cells and you open it up, all that crud spills out into you and you feel like crap. You have to kind of go through that
mhm.
slowly if you want to. Some people like me, we just go jumped right into it and about died, but I came out good on the other side. But,
Yeah.
that I'm just not a moderator. So
Me
to
neither.
me,
Me neither, Laura. I
uh-uh,
cannot.
no, no.
Moderation is a lie in my book. I just can't. I
It,
can't. And I know that some people are,
yeah.
but not me.
My
Nope.
husband is a moderator. He will buy a big bag of, like, I think it's a pound bag, a Ziploc bag type style of M&Ms, peanut M&Ms. He'll have them for a whole year. He'll go
Wow,
in, he'll take two
that's
out, and
crazy.
he likes, I know he'll take two of the green ones. He says the greens taste better. I don't believe that, but whatever.
Green dye
And
tastes
green's
better.
his favorite color. Yeah. I'm like, what kind of dye is in that? How many dyes, dear? But he can eat two of those. He'll zip it up, he'll put it back in the sock drawer, and it may be 3, 4 weeks before he ever goes back and has another one. But that is not me. I don't have that. And I wouldn't want to put that stuff in my body, even if I could moderate it,
Right.
because I know the ingredients that are in it that are just, yeah, they're just
Yeah.
it's basically a chemistry set that they put together to make these food like products. I mean, and this is something we were discussing. He wanted to go buy McDonald's one night, which he hasn't done in like 2 months now. But I was like, isn't it amazing how many ingredients are in your French fries? And he was like, well, they're just French fries, oil, and salt. And I was like, are they? So I
Right.
looked up McDonald's French fries, and I think it was 16 ingredients, I believe. It might have been more than that, but it was all these flavor additives that they have to
Mhm.
add to it so they taste like they were fried in tallow. And I'm like, just fry it in
That's
the dang
crazy.
tallow
Right. That is
and be
crazy.
done.
And they used to
Yeah,
back in
yeah,
the
they
day.
used to. Mm-hmm.
That is
Till
so
93.
crazy. Yeah, that is so crazy. So,
Yeah.
Galen also asking, how much D3 do you take with your K2?
So for myself, I do the 5,000 international units with the 100 micrograms of K2. Some people that I work with will do, it depends where their vitamin D level is. If you're under 60, I would probably start with some 10,000 or just take two of the 5,000s until you can get your levels up to where 70s, 80s, stuff like that, I think is going to
Mhm,
be best.
mhm,
And what's funny is some of the people I've worked with, one of the people I worked with 3 years ago, I had another thing on my website with them where I worked with them for an hour, and we went back over, and they said, she goes, I don't remember, like, I don't know how much of this made a difference with vitamin D, but she says, I have not had a cold. She says, I haven't gotten the flu. I didn't get COVID when my whole family got COVID. She had gotten COVID previously, but once she got her
mhm.
vitamin D better, she was like, if I got it, I didn't get sick because she was like, I didn't test. Everybody's like done with the whole testing part.
Yeah,
And she's like, yeah, I don't need to be on the government's docket of anything. But she just was like, she goes, I don't get anything. And she works with little kids. She is like a preschool teacher. So those little things are germ carriers.
oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. I got these 5 grandkids in here. I'm thankful that I'm not getting sick. I'm very
Yes.
thankful that I'm not getting sick. David has a comment here. I take my statin drugs only 2 times a week. I no longer have any side effects from when I was taking them 3 days or longer per week. My numbers are acceptable for me. A little, that's all that matters.
Yeah. Which that's, and I don't say that every person absolutely, you should not. Yes, I do. Nobody should have to take them. But if you want to take them, you get free will over your body. to
Okay.
take them if you want to take them. My concern with the statin drugs is what it does. It shuts your liver down from producing cholesterol, which God put in your body for a reason. It
Yeah.
blocks you from absorbing the cholesterol, getting it into the brain and around all your nerves, which have a myelin sheath around them that is a
Mhm.
double layer of fat. Okay, it's a phospholipid bilayer, 2 layers of fat. So, what I see with people that are taking even a little bit of statin is that they are going to tend to have trouble with like nerve pain a lot of times, memory, different things like that, that you'll start to notice after years of doing that. Even low doses. I have some people that take 10 milligrams of like simvastatin. And as you get talking, they're like, well, yeah, my feet, I do have like a neuropathy. And I'm like, right, yeah, right. Because that coating, if that coating over the wire gets a notch out of it, then that electrical impulse, instead of going across like it's supposed to, will come out that opening. And then you build little plaques, which is what happens in the brain. Plaques on the brain do not cause Alzheimer's. That is a byproduct of them not having that coating. And then those plaques build up to protect the brain from the electrical impulses coming out all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a doctor, but personally, I never would take, I don't think I would ever want to take one. So, but definitely, as Laura said, each person has to decide what's best for their own body. And that is
Yep,
a choice that everybody gets to make. So,
that's right. That's right.
that's a good thing. We have another
With
question here.
Yeah,
Go
go ahead.
ahead, Laura. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, the other thing with statins is the only time that I would ever say, maybe take it for about a month, would be if you have had a heart attack, if you've had a stroke, or you've had a stent placed in the body, the brain, the heart. It is shown to keep down inflammation for about a month. At a month, that inflammatory relief that it gives no longer is there. So I could see where somebody, like if I had a stent put in, I'm not going to do it, but that's where I could see that there might be a little bit of benefit for that short time. But otherwise, I don't want to be diabetic.
Right. Yep. Okay. How long to reverse fatty liver from bad food? Can I say it depends?
It does depend.
That's our pat answer at work. It depends. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Laura.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the very first people I worked with turned his fatty liver, and his was very bad fatty liver. It was the ugliest liver I've ever seen in my life. He had actual CT scans, and it looked like the liver should kind of sit like this, kind of comes down a little bit, and it should look like baby butt. It should be just smooth, shiny, nothing. He actually looked like he had cauliflower growing out of his liver. I mean, it was already starting to get to the cirrhosis of it. Not a drinker, not any of that, but it was the fatty liver. In 3 months' time of him going carnivore, he had another scan done and it was 90% better. At 6 months, he had another scan done and you could never tell he ever had anything wrong with his liver. So
Amazing.
most of the people start seeing results pretty quickly. The body is made to heal itself if we quit poisoning it. So as soon as you quit poisoning it, it will go into this restructuring and trying to fix things, which is a lot of times why people go on carnivore and they're like, well, I didn't drop 50 pounds. And I'm like, right, but you eventually will lose the weight. I mean, you got down to your perfect weight, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, so it takes time, but when you're in a state of healing, your body wants to hang on to all of that extra energy because it's going to have to pull from that energy in order to heal. And so I'm always like, let's get the body healed inside and out. And then if we need to tweak some things, then we can start tweaking fat to protein ratios, different things, different types of fasting, and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
I think that's the thing of it is that it will heal it. That's the key. I
Mhm.
mean, that's the thing.
Yeah.
And it heals so, when I would say it, I'm talking about carnivore. heals so many different disease states, not just fatty liver.
Oh yeah.
So many, which you listed your list at the beginning of this show today, of the
Yeah.
many myriad of disease
Yep.
states that you had. And so it
Yep.
really is, it's life changing. It really is. It changes
Yeah.
everything.
It
Totally.
does. Well, and I being a nurse and working with people on my website, plus the people I work with outside of here, I do a lot of one-on-one consults with people or one on four. I've had quite a few of them recently, and then I do one
Mhm.
at a church where I could have, tons of people there. Is that I see that if people are willing to just clean up the diet and get rid of the processed foods, a lot of times they'll start that healing process. But I've had people with stage 5 kidney disease that are no longer taking dialysis. I had one
Wow.
who was on dialysis and she was, well, my nephrologist says that I can't eat meat. And I'm like, I said, what is your body made of? And she goes, I don't know. And I said, amino acids, which is proteins, the little amino acids. And I said, so if you don't take in things that are the building blocks, how do you expect your body to heal? And I said, you
Right.
don't have to do, the things that we're talking about. You can do what your doctor has told you, which is what you did when you were stage 1, and then you became stage 2, and you followed that advice and you became stage 3. So it's up to
Right.
you, but you have no other stage to go. You're already at stage 5 doing dialysis. And I said, so what's it hurt to try? Well, her doctor, her numbers kept getting better and better. He fired her because she took the advice of a nurse and started eating meat and cleaning up her diet. And
Mhm.
she is now it's called chronic kidney disease, CKD is what they call that. She's a level 1, which is
Wow.
means it's just a watch and see. And who knows, she may get to where she has none. If you saw the lab work, you'd be like, God, this person's barely got anything. Like, this is that, great. But to see where she came from and now where she's come down to. And I've had several with CKD, 3 or 4 getting close to that dialysis mark, that we're like, let's get you before we ever get there,
Right.
and get that turned around. But I just think if you put the nutrients in that the body is supposed to have that are organic matter that the body can break down and utilize to rebuild the structures that it needs, that you will heal the things that you need healed. That's why a lot of people are like, well, it can heal this. Yes, it can heal. Yes, because it's not even that it per se is healing, it's that it's quieting down the noise in the body, because the body's like, where this ethylene glycol, where do I put that? Where do I break that down? Well, you
Right.
don't. I mean,
No.
you got RV antifreeze in your cake mixes, and that's the thing too. I think if people would take a little bit of extra time, and when you buy something, instead of looking at the front of the package, because that is not regulated as to having the truth on it, the sidebar that has the ingredients and that, there's some regulations there. That front is nothing but advertisement. It can say heart healthy, it can say all these claims may lower cholesterol, which when something says may, it's just as much that it may not.
Right.
I mean, that's just a word that they use. But I always tell people is to start looking at your ingredient list. And
Mhm.
if you think back to when people's families made their own breads and pastas and stuff, I mean, pasta had 3 ingredients, bread had 5. But if you look at the stuff at the store and you turn it over and you look at the back of it, you've got 37 ingredients in some of these breads that most people think they're eating the brown bread and it's better for them. And I'm like, no, really, it's not. Like,
No.
if you want to eat that, your body doesn't know what to do with a lot of those chemicals, those preservatives, those dyes. And when you do that, then you go into bad metabolic health, which bad
Right.
metabolic health leads to all diseases, every disease.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep. You said it so well. Absolutely. And as you said, the body is an amazing healing machine. When we start putting in the right inputs, it's going to do what it can do, and that is to heal itself. I always think about this because we say, eat meat, eat protein and fat, right? Eliminate sugar, which makes
Yep.
sense to a lot of people. But if somebody told you to become a vegan, you need to be a vegan to be healthy. You would be like, oh, let me try it. But
Yeah.
we say, eat meat to be healthy. And it's like, oh, no, I could never do that. It's just,
Right.
we need to have a paradigm shift about
Yeah.
what the
Well,
body actually can heal with,
right.
if we're
Well,
looking for healing, right?
right, right. Well, and the thing is, most everybody that I've worked with that has went carnivore, we already tried the vegan route. Most everybody has tried the cabbage diet. I hate a
Mhm.
cabbage diet, that cabbage soup. Oh, the thought of that makes me just want to vomit. But I mean, we
Yeah.
did those things and we
Mhm.
didn't get healthier. We didn't
Oh.
get better. I have never worked with anybody who is 100% vegan, vegetarian, who doesn't have health issues that I don't think can be fixed if they would. I think they would be able to be fixed if they went carnivore. And a lot of it is the people I've worked with, because I've worked with everybody, but they're like, well, I just don't like the killing of animals. And I'm like, great. Okay. That's your soapbox. Let me get on mine. And I'm
Mhm.
like, I live in the Midwest. If you watch a tractor go down the field and disc it up, you get these white birds that come in behind it. Do you know what those white birds are doing? Yeah, they're out
Going
there eating
down.
all the dead worms and all the animals that got chopped up. And, I had a gal I was working with and she goes, yeah, but they're not cute. And I'm like, okay, but if your soapbox is that you don't want to kill things, then
Yeah.
you shouldn't want to kill things, So I'm
Right.
like, that argument doesn't really hold true when you put it out there because like how say I eat a whole cow a year and 3 deer. Those animals have great lives and have one bad day, one bad minute, you know, where I can't imagine living the other way. I tried vegan. I did the same thing. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm gonna juice this and juice that. I bought a big fancy juicer and my constipation, which was another thing I healed, didn't even think about that, was so
Yep.
bad that if I ate something, whether it was juiced and the fiber was broken down, or whether it was something that had fiber like an apple where I ate the peel, I'm not going to the bathroom for 4 or 5 days. I don't have that.
Mhm.
I don't have that
Right.
issue.
And
I
people
had
think it's the meat
polyps.
that's doing that, Laura. They're like, when I eat meat, I can't go to the bathroom. What about all that other stuff you ate with that meat? What about all that fiber?
Yeah,
Come
yeah.
on.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's the thing too, is I've worked with a lot of people that have like IBS or Crohn's or whatever. And I'm like, okay, you're in a flare right now. And they're like, yeah. And what did your doctor say? And your nutritionist, which you did the nutrition class, and they were like, "Oh, all this fibrous food." And I'm like, "Great." So that's non-soluble fiber, which means you can't break down those fibers because we're not created to break those down. I said, "So now you've taken a Brillo pad and you're running it down a mad colon that's already swollen, trying to bleed. It's got all this pain in it already. And now you're
Mhm.
taking that and running that down that. And I don't see where that's going to feel better. Um, so that Kent carnivore, he does a great, when he talks about his story of seeing the broccoli in his bag the day after he had his colon removed. That same nutritionist is like, no, you've got to eat these things. And he's like, but they're showing up in my bag. You can't. And then he says, when his girlfriend brought him in steak or hamburger, he ate that and he says, I just had stool show up in the bag
Yeah.
because
Right.
he had believed that meat lays in your colon for years. Well, I can tell you, my
Mhm.
gastro guy, I don't ever have to go back to have a colonoscopy unless I am having an issue because years before I started getting colonoscopies at like 30 because I had that constipation as a younger
Uh-huh.
kid so bad that they were like,
Mhm.
put you at higher risk for colon cancer. I would have 5, 6, 7 polyps every single time, even on keto,
Wow.
even as clean
Mhm.
keto as I did. After a
Yep.
year and a half on carnivore, when I went and had that done, 0 polyps. Did it after
Wow.
4th year, nothing. And he says, I said, "You mean I don't have a bunch of steak laying in there?" He goes, "No, you don't."
No, it does not stay in
Yeah.
there. Your body absorbs it. Well,
Yeah.
we are out of time. I cannot believe it. Thank you so much, Laura.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of my labs. I think that they are
Yes.
fantastic.
Yes.
When I saw them, I was like, I'm not worried, but I wanted to just
Mhm.
give some comfort to my family because they were a little worried when they saw that. So
Yes.
I'm pretty happy
Yeah.
about it. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that we have an event coming up this summer in September 5th. It's
Yes.
called Impact Meet Up and Eat Up with Carnivorous Grandma and Friends. See if I can bring up a slide. This is our meetup, and it's September 5th, right here in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And look who's right there in the middle. Nurse Laura will be in the house. And so we got Dr. Kiltz and Dr. Nelson, and lots of your favorite influencers coming in. There's people literally coming in from around the world. And the big news is that we are going to be screening the Healing Humanity movie during that event. So go
Yay.
ahead and take a picture of that QR code. Get your tickets. Come meet up with us in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and we are looking forward to seeing you right here in Kalamazoo. Got anything to say
Yes,
about
I'm
Impact,
excited.
Laura?
Yeah, I am ready, ready, ready. I cannot wait. I have no problem talking in front of a lot of people, so I don't ever get nervous. My husband's like, "Well, you get nervous?" And I'm like, "Nope. I've been living
Yeah,
this for so many years that
yeah.
it's really secondhand." And yeah, so no, I'm looking forward to it for sure.
Yes, Laura has a website. It's right there. You see it on the screen, russellbrands.com. And then her YouTube channel is at Healthy Carnivore, right there. So yes, check out Laura's YouTube channel. Make sure that you subscribe to her channel. And she has lots of great topics. Oh my gosh, she talks about the most amazing things on her channel. So go and check her out and become a subscriber.
Yeah,
Thank you again, Laura. We will see you
you're
guys
welcome.
next time. So I'll be live on Monday night for Hey Sister Girl. Laura will also be live on Monday night. She goes live
Yep,
right before I do. So,
yep.
you can check out both of our live streams. And then I'll be back here next weekend, next Saturday night. I'll be back for another episode of Coach's Corner with Coach Sherrod Brown. So I'm super excited about that.
Oh,
And that's going to be a
yay.
really cool show. So come in and meet us there. Also, I'm doing my daily walk and talk series. So we'll make sure that that we get a video. I'm trying to do a video every single day during the summer. So they're unedited, unfiltered, just raw. And so basically, let me see if I can bring a let me see if I can get your link. Hold on a second, because they're asking for the link, Laura. Uh, let's see. Why am I not seeing it? russellbrands.com, right?
Yep, with a Z. Make sure the brands is with a Z because it'll always try to pull up Russell Brands with an S.
Oh, I didn't put enough. I didn't put enough. Oh my gosh. It helps if you can type. I want to make sure we put this out. Russell, I got to put 2 L's there. There we go. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. Laura Russell. There we go. Laura Lynn Home. I'll put this
Yep.
link right in there. Yeah, you guys go out there because she has some really, really amazing products. I can't type either.
And cheap.
And cheap, yes. Yep. So that's her website. Go out there and get your products. She has amazing products, and she does not charge 2 arms and 2 legs for
Oh,
them. I love the tooth
yeah.
powder and the face
Yeah.
serum. So
Yeah.
yeah. All right, you guys, we'll see y'all next time. Have a good night, everybody.
See
Bye.
ya.